Welcome to banddirector.com. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Arthur Weisberg. I am the bassoon professor at Indiana University School of Music. I've played in a number of the major orchestras and some of the famous chamber music ensembles around the country. Today I'm going to be talking about the bassoon, and not only just the standard bassoon, but a bassoon that has been developed by myself. It's really the bassoon of the future, and I want to explain why such a thing is necessary. The bassoon in many ways is the least developed of all of the instruments, all of them. For some reason it stopped being developed about 100 years ago, and the modern bassoon is just like it was 100 years ago, with the addition of a few keys, and those keys are basically to help the high register to come out more easily, and it has a few trill keys. But it's basically the same as it was. And there's a problem with the bassoon. The problem has to do with the octave system on the bassoon, and I'd like to explain what that means. An octave key is necessary when the fingering in two different octaves is exactly the same, except for the use of the octave key. On the bassoon, that involves 9 notes that are exactly the same in both octaves, except for the use of the whisper key or the octave key. And that's the key that's located on the crook up here. And this key was invented about 100 years ago, and it was a big improvement because before that the bassoon had no octave key. And the only way you could change octaves was by kind of squeezing it out with your embouchure, and it was very unsatisfactory. So this first octave attempt was a definite improvement, but it has severe limitations, as any bassoon player will tell you. The notes in question being the same fingering in both octaves, 6 of those notes crack. They really crack. They crack because, frankly, this octave key is in the wrong place. An octave key has to be located in a precise place to do its job, and this one is not in the right place. Therefore, we get notes that crack. All bassoonists will tell you that they suffer from this problem. The only way around to get away from the cracking notes is to use what are called the flick keys. And these are the flick keys on the bassoon. These are the keys that are used when one is playing one of those 6 notes that crack. These 3 keys. And bassoonists have found out that these 3 keys can stop the notes from cracking, because what they are really doing is acting as octave keys. And you need 3 of them because the notes cover quite a range, cover 6 half steps. And what it involves is when you play one of the notes, you press this key, another note this one, and another one this one. And if you're jumping back and forth, it's very awkward. It's a very awkward thing to do. So first of all, using the flick keys as octave keys is very tricky technically. The other problem with using those keys is that they do change the sound of the note. They make the notes sharper and more nasal, because those keys were not designed to act as octave keys. They were designed to make the high notes easier to come out. And they're really not in the right place to act as octave keys. So it's physically very difficult. It makes the notes sound a little worse, and it also means that when you use your thumb on the normal octave key, you're jumping back and forth, and that's just very hard to do. I always felt that there had to be another solution to that. So what happens is that the bassoon does not have enough octave keys, and it certainly doesn't have them in the right place. I did a lot of experimenting on a bassoon and finally located the proper place for these new octave keys, and I can show them to you on the bassoon. They are up here at the top of the wing joint, and they're not in the same places as the flick keys. They're their own special placement and their own special size. And those are 2 additional octave keys that completely stop the notes from cracking. Now, Some people have said the bassoon is all thumbs. Well, that's true in a way, because the left thumb, for example, has 9 keys to operate, and that's quite amazing. And there's no room left to operate those new octave vents that I have added. So I knew that I had to make it happen automatically. So when you play this system, you play exactly the same fingering as the standard bassoon, except you don't flick. And the bassoon, in a sense, flicks for you automatically. But it not only flicks, it opens the proper octave keys. And I needed 2 rather than 1. One of the new vents was able to handle 3 half steps, but as I said, we need 6 half steps. So I needed another octave vent to handle the other 3. And you can see the 2 of them up here on the bassoon. Now if we get a good close-up of this, I'm going to show you the way they work. Now, with this fingering, this fingering represents the lower 3 half steps, and if you see that the lower of the vents is open. Now, when I lift my finger to play the next half step up, that vent closes and the other one opens. So even if I was trilling between these 2 notes, those octave vents would open and close at the exact time they're supposed to. It makes playing the bassoon much simpler, particularly for beginners. Beginners hate to flick. It's a terrible technique to have to learn. I've found that with beginners, they can learn 3 times as fast with this system as with a normal bassoon. Now, if you look all over the instrument, you'll see that there's a lot of mechanism that's been added to make it work automatically. It needed a lot of mechanism on all three of the joints. The boot joint, the wing, and the long joint all needed keys added to them so that it works automatically. And you might ask, is that very expensive? Yes, it is pretty expensive. If you have any key put on a bassoon, you're going to spend between $400 and $600. A very simple key, a trill key. This entire mechanism costs about $2,500. Now that may sound like a lot of money. And it is a lot of money if a bassoon that you buy only costs $3,000. This will almost double the price. So it puts it out of the range of a lot of beginners, although I've sold it to some beginners and mostly to professionals. I really want to make it available to beginners. And to do that, I have found a very relatively inexpensive, very nice student bassoon that I'm putting the system on, and the entire package is about $5,000. And I feel that students and schools can afford such a price for an instrument that's going to produce tremendous results in a relatively short time. So just a little more about the pricing situation. The price that I mentioned now is the price at this moment, at the moment that you're seeing this video. It could change. If we get swamped with orders, it's possible that the price will come down. But I think it's going to remain something like this for the next 2 or 3 years. But you should contact us. There are some variables in the price. Certain bassoons have keys on them that kind of are in the way of our system, and we have to work around it. Those bassoons are not as common, but they do exist. And if you had a bassoon like that, it might cost $300 or $400 more. So, but the normal standard bassoon will not have that problem. If you want to find out much more about this, details about how to order, etc., please look at my website, which is Future Bassoon. That's one word, futurebassoon.com. And it will answer a lot of your questions and tell you who to contact. People are now making appointments. It takes 2 to 3 weeks to install a system on a bassoon, and we are taking actually appointments. So please look at the website.